Hola, buenas tardes, buenos días, perdón. Mi nombre es Cristina, soy aficionada a la truficultura y formo parte
Hi,
del
my name
panel.
is Cristina. I am a truffle amateur, and my name is Isabel Bertolín. I'm also part of this association. I come from a family involved in truffle collection and growing, and I'm also part of a company selling truffle abroad, and I'm part of the panel, the tasting panel. So we're going to start off with our presentation. The presentation we have prepared, who we are. Well, this truffle sensory panel stems from a collaboration between the CITA and a group of people passionate for truffles. Our idea was to try to classify truffles in a different way, according to their sensorial characteristics. So what we do is to classify truffles according to organoleptic features. We also do promotion. We promote truffles so that people are aware of truffles and their characteristics. We also do education campaigns, and we raise awareness so that people know what they are buying. So we try to educate consumers. We tell them how to identify truffles. We also teach how to use and preserve truffles in practical workshops. And we also we are part of jury in truffle contest. I'm sorry, but now, as you've seen in previous presentations, there are many varieties of truffles. These are the main truffle species or varieties that are marketed, like tuber indicus, tuber estivum, brumale, and melanosporum. We're going to focus on tuber melanosporum because this is the one we work with in this region. We are the greatest producer of this variety. Here you can see this wheel of flavors. The main flavors are the ones on this wheel. Tuber melanosporum has a very characteristic flavor, that of sulfur, but together with this sulfur flavor, there are almost 200 flavors, but these are the main flavors of the black truffle. In order to obtain a top quality truffle, all these flavors should be balanced, and the sulfur flavor should be predominant or enhanced. We use a truffle tasting sheet, which is much more complicated than the one we are sharing here with you. But when we conduct truffle tasting sessions, we use the simplified version. The first part focuses on touch, sight, and
when you're finished, you can just pass the truffles back for us to slice when you've had a chance to look at them.
And now we're going to do the practical part of the tasting. For a tasting card, I guess you have all a truffle tasting sheet and a truffle. Is that the case? Yes.
It's going to take us just a couple of minutes to get the truffles sliced up and passed out for the students to taste them.
Vale, pues a ver, lo primero que vamos a hacer.
Okay, the first thing we're going to do, so that we are doing things together, is the first questions that have to do with sight and touch. So you will have to take the truffle, you will have to press the truffle on different points just to make sure that the peridium, the outer part, is firm. You have to verify whether it is soft, hard, or very hard. Then you have to see whether the peel is uniform, is mixed, or is not uniform. And then I guess that this truffles are cut or sliced. So have a look at that and see whether they are ripe, or very ripe. So once you have the truffles, try to answer these 3 questions. Okay? I don't know if this is clear.
Yes, great. Thank you.
Well, the first question is just to check how firm the peridium is. So you have to press the truffle gently with these 2 fingers, and then you touch again, you press again on different sides just to check how firm it is. We normally compare that with a rubber. When you press a rubber, this would be medium firmness. So an eraser, just compare that with an eraser. Once you have answered the first one, then you go to the second question, how uniform the truffle peridium is, whether it is uniform or not uniform, or is a mixed peridium. And then you have to have a look at the truffle's gleba, the flesh. You have to use the scale, how unripe or ripe the gleba is. As you can see, the first 5 pictures means that the truffle isn't ripe. From the 6th picture, we can say that the truffle is ripe, and the last pictures show very, very ripe truffles. I don't know if this is clear for you. Have you finished with these questions? Can we go on to the next questions? That of smell. Isabel and Cristina. Yes, let's go on to the next questions. You have to take the truffle again. Depends whether it is too cold or not. If it's too cold, the aroma will be less intense. You have to press them. You have to hold the truffle between your hands so that we can warm it up. Then you just introduce your nose and try to figure out what are the flavors that you can distinguish. All the truffles are quite ripe because we're at the end of the season, so the sulfur flavor will be very clear because this is the clear characteristic of melanosporum. So I'm sure that the sulfur flavor is very powerful and you will be able to detect it. For instance, in this truffle, I can also smell the black olive flavor. I really don't feel or smell the mushroom flavor. Yes, I can feel a little bit of the blue cheese flavor or aroma, not hazelnut. Sometimes you can smell hazelnut or bitter almond. Yes, some hints of oak. You know, when you are smelling an oak casks where wine or whiskey is kept. Some butter hint. In the professional tasting sheet, every time we find one of these flavors, we assess it according to its intensity. This is a simpler version of the tasting sheet because you are not trained to do this. So what you have to do is just try to smell as many flavors as possible, and you have to check them on this list. Then we have question number 5. Out of all these aromas that you have identified, You have to note down the ones that are more powerful. In my case, I think it's sulfur, a little bit blue cheese, and nuts. And then question number 6. This has to do with the intensity of this aroma. At this time of the season, I think that the aroma is very intense because the truffle is quite ripe. So all the aromas are very intense. We normally do the tasting in October, November, up to now. So at the beginning of the season, it's much more difficult to recognize these aromas. When the truffle is green, we can see more herb or fruit aromas. Now we can smell olives, nuts, sulfur. And finally, we're going to score the aroma of this truffle according to what you found, whether it is firm, peridium, if we've been able to identify many aromas and they are all balanced, intensity, and then we can score the truffle from 1 to 10. I think they are all also tasting the truffle, right? Let's see what's the feedback from the room. Yeah, it would be nice to hear the feedback from someone who has already done the tasting.
Anyone want to
I don't know
give,
if this is possible.
anyone want to give some feedback on your experience? What kinds of things are you smelling? What kinds of things are you tasting?
Hello. Yeah, this was fascinating. So the sample that we had was very firm and relatively uniform. Comparing it, it looked like it was ripe or headed the other way. And there were lots of notes of like soy sauce and white miso, or like a boiled asparagus or hop flavors. Yeah, this was fascinating.
Anyone else?
A ver, hemos podido comprobar que algunos se colocan la lámina
I've
en la
seen that some of you are placing the slice on the palm of your hand and you press it in order to warm it up. If you do that with several slices, you will see that the slices release different aromas. I don't know if this is the case because some aromas, sorry?
Hello. So I haven't tasted it yet, but just based on smell, it was actually at least my sample was like very intense and it's like very like sharp to my nose at least. Definitely noticed the mushroom for sure. I felt some like it mellowed out towards the end, like if I stepped away from it. Other than that, yeah, it was interesting. Like I wasn't expecting it, but yeah, definitely really sharp to my nose at least.
Sí, lo que suele ocurrir es que a medida que va tomando temperatura,
Yes, it is true. As the truffle warms up, different aromas start being released, and then it starts oxidizing, and then you start smelling more intense aromas, and the aromas are worsens as the truffle warms up. The first time you taste a truffle, a melanosporum truffle, you don't smell a lot of aromas. You smell it and say, yes, it smells it smells truffle. But if someone is guiding you and saying, I can smell this or that, then you learn to identify different aromas. When we have attended trainings and given trainings, we've been able to identify 16, 17 different aromas. And it's quite funny, and I think it's a very enriching experience to be able to guide people to learn to identify different aromas. If you have any doubt or question, please.
Any questions for our panel?
Hello. Something unexpected happened when they started slicing the truffles. I wasn't expecting to be able to smell it so strongly, so far away, just with them cutting through it. And my question is that just a thing with black truffles, or are all truffles so pungent that have such a strong aroma that it kind of fills up the room? Because from a practical aspect, I'm trying to picture this ingredient in a restaurant, and it makes a lot more sense now how a truffle would move so fast, because it's kind of tempting everyone in the room to try and get it, because it's hard to ignore it because it has such a strong smell. It spreads so far and it smells really good. So yeah, are all truffles like that, or is it just the black truffle?
In general, all truffles have aroma, but tuber melanosporum is one of the most powerful truffles aroma-wise. For instance, in the festival in Carrión, this truffle festival is organized in a very large place, and there are many people showing truffles. We're all the time opening the bells so that people can smell the truffles. And when people enter into the room or into this venue, because there are like 1,000 people, this is the capacity of the room, and everybody says, oh my God, that smell. And the houses of producers also smell of truffle. And you are totally right. In a restaurant, when the chef is grating truffle, this aroma, that's the whole room, the whole restaurant, and everybody knows that they are cooking with truffles. This is also the case in, for instance, with tuber magnatum. It has a very powerful aroma, but I think that tuber melanosporum is the most powerful truffle aroma-wise. Any other question?
While harvesting black truffles, if you come across one that's unripe, still kind of beige,
cosechar una trufa negra.
kind of
¿Puede
beige or
repetir la
brown,
pregunta, por favor?
is it possible to put it back into the
Es
ground to continue the
si no está,
maturation
a la
process,
hora de
or do you
recolectar
have
la
to take it
trufa,
out and find another
si no
use
está
for it or
madura,
just throw it away?
¿es posible volver a colocarla en la tierra?
Perdón, ¿la puede repetir? Es que no nos ha llegado la... Ah.
No se puede.
No, you can't put it back. In fact, the dog is always going to sniff out the truffles once they're ripe. No, also, if you don't remove the truffle, it's going to spoil if you leave it. Also, once the dog has sniffed out the truffle, it's because it is ripe, because that's when it is giving off its scent. But once you've taken it out of the ground, you can't put it back in. It's like if you pick an orange from a tree, you can't put it back on. It's the same idea.
Other questions?
More questions? Any more questions?
Yes, thank you. In reviewing the truffle tasting sheet, it's curious to me that there's no section for taste. It's all touch, sight, smell. 3 questions on smell, nothing about taste at all. Is there another sheet or is that too subjective?
Es así. Lo que intentamos
No,
nosotros
that's what they're like.
es definir las características organolépticas.
Because we want to point out the organoleptic characteristics, its aroma,
A libre elección para que la deguste tal cual como quiera.
and then we allow the taters to taste the truffle, either with a dish or marinating it or whatever. But what we do during the tasting sessions,
¿Qué calidad tiene esa?
what we want to know is we want to know more about the organoleptic characteristics. What does it smell of? What are the nuances? What are the hints?
Other questions?
Okay, so if we don't have any more questions, Taylor?
We have one more.
Well, as far as we're concerned, okay, we have another question, yes.
Hi, yes, I'm wondering if the if the taste changes significantly when it's cooked. Does it solubilize in whatever you're cooking it in, for instance, oil, or does it solubilize better in water? And will that make the taste stronger on your palate like the smell is?
El aroma, sí, cuando sometes a una trufa a una temperatura alta.
When you apply heat, it's losing aroma. But when you grate a truffle over a dish that's already been cooked, for example, that's when you are getting most aroma out of it. And that's when you're going to get the best. Yeah, I'm laughing because I can see that you're trying the truffles already, and I hope that you like them. At around 20 or 25 degrees, that's when you can detect all of the aromas. That's when it's at its acid point. Above 25 up to 30 degrees, that's when the aromas volatilize, and that's when we lose them. So in aromatic terms, above 30 degrees, we wouldn't be able to distinguish those aromas. So for a food product to be condimented with truffle, it has to be cooked at a temperature lower than 25 degrees. This is what my colleague Isabel was saying. That's why they grate or they slice the truffle over the dish that's already been cooked at the table. And so that way there's a fusion between the aromas and the dish. But just to answer what you were saying, but yes, there is a difference between smell and taste. Share the results of the study with you and with your teachers. Well, this brings us to the end of the activity. I should like to say a big thank you to all of you for your time and for being with us, all of the speakers, all of the students of the Culinary Institute of America. Thank you very much indeed to Taylor Reid, who's been coordinating the activity with me. Thank you very much, Taylor, for participating in the workshop. I hope that we can be together next year in New York in person, because I know this has been a nightmare. We hope that the pandemic, that is, has been a nightmare. I hope that we'll be able to see each other in person next year. And without further ado, I should just like to say thank you to all of you for your interest, for your questions. I'd also like to say a special word of thanks to the truffle producers that have collaborated with us, to the interpreters, to the organizers, to the speakers, and all the technicians from the Culinary Institute of America that have helped us a great deal in preparing the workshop. So that's all from me, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, Fernando, and thank you to all of you as well, to the producers and the chefs and everybody at EMI who helped to organize this amazing event. Thank you so much, and let's give them a big round of applause. We hope to see you again next year.